Hello, good afternoon, folks. How are you doing? So, I want to share this message with you because it comes up very frequently and it's a good one. So, you're not screwed up if you do this when life feels good, and I'll explain what I mean. So, imagine if you have gone through some crazy shit in your life, which many of us have. You've gone through some kind of big transformation or transition, or and even globally, collectively right now, the world has gone through a massive like trauma, right? Collective trauma. So sometimes when we go through this period and then we enter into a much more positive period where we feel stable, we feel grounded again, maybe we feel safe, we even feel happy, and it's almost like life feels as if it's going in the right direction. So what happens from that point is that sometimes from that place, because we're in such a good place, we can start to go into then almost like what I'd call a catch up with your emotions. And so sometimes a lot of people experience this, and it's definitely something that comes up when I work with someone very frequently. This one is very, very common, and I've experienced it myself, is when we are in a good place and then suddenly we start to feel like, almost as if it's out of nowhere, we can start to feel the emotions. Maybe we feel fear or anxiety or depression or annoyance or frustration, or some level of emotion that doesn't feel so great. We might even start thinking about things in a certain way, despite being in a very maybe more positive situation where maybe friends and family would wonder what the hell's wrong with you because you're in a great situation now and you've got no issue, no problem. But I want you to know that it's really, really normal. And the reason is because, think about it, if you've gone through some level of emotional turmoil, it's part of being here as a human, and you've gone through a difficult period, right? It could be a relationship breakdown, a change in finances, issues with your health, stuff with your kids. I mean, there's like 100 million gazillion things this could be. You go through it. When you're going through that like trauma or difficult time, this kind of like rough patch or even horrendous time, when you're going through it, we're going through it and we're in survival. So all we're doing is really doing enough to cope and get through and survive the thing, survive the emotional threat, even the physical stuff. So when we come out of it and we come into this place of, oh, right, we're through that, we're home and dry, everything's fine now, or, we're recovering from whatever it was, we're in a good place. It's only when we're out of the fire, really, that we have the emotional capacity, the mental capacity, and even the physical energy to be able to process what the hell has just happened. So this is why it's really common that when you are, you find yourself in a, in a good place, finally there's space for some of this old stuff to come in. So if that happens, I really want you to know that it is part of the processing. And then if you're not conscious of that and you're not aware of it, your mind might start feeding you stories around how messed up you are, how you always self-sabotage, why do you always do it, why can't you be happy, what's, all of these things. And we can do a lot of judgment and self-criticism, and then that keeps the emotions locked away. So another way to think about it is, a soldier on a battlefield. We all know that idea. It's not hard to imagine a soldier having PTSD. When he's in the war zone, he's not going to process the emotional feelings when he's in the middle of the war zone, when bullets are flying. It's going to be later when he's out of that scenario. Maybe he's back at home, safe in his home. He's not even in that world anymore. And that's when, say, like the PTSD would come in. That's when the traumas, the flashbacks, the emotions would come in. So that's obviously a different extreme like level, but I've dealt with that too with people. So I want you to know, like, when you understand that, when you're in a good place, because suddenly you start to feel like you're not, there is a very good reason. So I just really wanted to share that message with you because it came up in a session today. And it's one that comes up a lot, and I thought it's really worth talking about, because a lot of what I do is I typically work with people when they've gone, either they're going through a transition or they've been through one. So that's kind of the sort of typical ways that someone will come into my space. And this happens, I see it a lot, where it's when they've gone through it and they've got some safety and some groundedness, and maybe life is feeling a bit safer and a bit more clear. Sometimes that's when the emotional stuff can come in, and you can start it's like you've got time and space to process it. So that is absolutely normal. It's a really positive thing when it happens, but not when if you don't understand it, you can give yourself a hell of a hard time. So I just want to share some love with you on that. If you have any questions about any of that, feel free to comment below or send me a private message. But it's a big one and it's a real one. And the same thing happened to me. So when I was going through my, I've gone through quite a few periods of transition and change and upheaval, but I'll just use this as an example. When I was going through my major illness, and it was like 5 years worth of losing everything, ill health, couldn't move, and I had to do all the healing and recovery, I was dealing with all the things that helped me recover, you know, really kind of sifting through everything. And then I got to the point of physical, mental and emotional recovery, and it was only when I started getting my energy back and feeling better, that's when I dealt with the trauma of actually the illness itself. Like there wasn't capacity to do all that at the time and deal with the trauma of, I've just been, you know, I'm ill and I've lost all these things, my relationship, my job, my everything. There wasn't room for that. So it was only when I was in a much better place, I then had to kind of go back, almost like backtrack a little bit and catch up with myself, and then do the processing on the actual trauma of this devastating illness that I had, deteriorating illness, and all the losses that I occurred along the way. So sometimes we can't do that. Well, most of the time we can't do that when we're in the thick of it. So give yourself a break. I don't believe that anyone just self-sabotages. Like often we tell ourselves, why do I always self-sabotage? Why can't I be happy? What's wrong with me? Why can't I access that high frequency? There's always a reason. Every single time there's always a reason why we do anything. There's always a reason why we behave in a certain way. There's always a reason why our thought patterns are the way they are, why our emotional states are why they are. And we are intuitive, wise, magical beings, you included. So I want you to, if you can, right now in this moment, if you need to, give yourself a whole load of love and give yourself some compassion, and starting to look at yourself, maybe if you need to, with a different lens, and give yourself that compassion and know that you've been doing the best you can with what resources you've had. And sometimes you have to be in a different state to be able to tackle certain aspects. And I think a lot of the time people put a massive amount of pressure on themselves, or they don't realize that, you know, there's a time and place, right, that we get to heal and release and process such a big part. So that's just my message that wanted to come through today. So I send you so much love. Thank you for watching. Thank you for receiving this if you need to. And yeah, feel free to drop any comments below. I always check in. And again, if you've got any questions on any of this topic, it's a big one and it's so common. So you are not alone. And I love people's stuff. I want you to know that we are multifaceted, colourful creatures. You are welcome, Wisteria. We're multifaceted, colourful creatures, right? And we have our stuff, and there are reasons for it, right? And we're all going on this crazy journey in this lifetime where nobody knows anybody else's reasons, right? We have many incarnations here. We've got reasons why we're sifting through things, experiencing, growing in certain areas, and it's not always logical, linear, right? But there is always a reason for things that we feel and we experience. So just give yourself massive amounts of love as far as you can today. And if you can't, I send it to you myself. Okay, so that is it for me today. Yes, that is my message. So and I'll see you tomorrow on this page. Okay, have a lovely rest of your day.